Hi, everyone. It's Lourdes Turrecha. Welcome to the Rise of Privacy Tech webcast, or TROPT Webcast, as we like to abbreviate here. I'm really excited today because we'll be talking about privacy data vaults. And as you know, our mission at TROPT is to fuel privacy tech and innovation. One of the categories that we've been looking at in the privacy tech space are privacy data vaults, which is one of the categories that we covered in the foundational trope defining the privacy tech landscape white paper that we published last year. I'm excited because with us today, we have Gil Dabah, who is Piiano CEO, joining us to talk about this and his journey in the privacy tech industry. Welcome to the webcast, Gil, and thank you for your time.
Hi, Lourdes. Thank you very much. It's good to talk to you again and now with everybody else.
Likewise, I can't wait for this conversation. I know you and I have had a conversation in person before, but I really would love to learn more about what you guys are building at Piiano Vault, Piiano. But before that, I do want to tell the audience, you can ask questions. We're gonna have a section about me asking Gil about his journey, and then we'll talk about their product. And then there's a Q&A section, but you're free to give us comments and questions, and we'll look at the comments as well. That's something that we've done before. And then we'll wrap up towards the end and share some resources and calls to action with you guys. So Gil, let's start off with your origin story. I'd love the audience to learn more about you and your background. How did you end up building in the emerging privacy tech industry? And I'd love for you to share about your security and hacker background. You're notoriously one of the top hackers out of Israel, is what one of our common contacts introduced me to you as. So I'd love for you to talk about your background and how you ended up building in privacy tech.
Yeah, thank you. That's flattering. And honestly, when we started the company, we said, yeah, privacy is probably boring and it's not something, VCs or how to recruit developers. Like nobody wants to do privacy. And that's like the kind of the reality and the challenges that we are seeing. But it
We
started
strongly
all
disagree, obviously.
Obviously, and here we are, right, talking about it. And that's the beauty of it after you start to realize what's going on. And we're going to touch this point also later. But I believe it because, as you said, I'm a hacker, like good ethical hacker, like white hat kind of experience, red team, blue team, doing forensics, reverse engineering, doing defense in the last company I worked for that acquired my company. So the point is that we were frustrated, with me and my partner, we have been running together for 10 years now. We have been frustrated with opening the newspapers and seeing like there is a data breach here, a data breach there. And our dream was very simple. Like we need to do something about it. We need to solve data breaches. We need to help with it. And when we started to research the market and to start to understand what can we do about data breaches, right? Because it's huge. Like everybody has been trying to solve it with firewalls, with DLPs, with so many different technologies and products, and we are still seeing it's not solved as in a general industry's state. And this is where we took our expertise of both engineering and hacking, and we said security, and we said let's look it up. And this is where, and now we can with privacy, because we realize like if you want to safeguard information and to prioritize for doing like proper data protection, you need to decide what you want to safeguard the most. You cannot say all the information I have in the company is at the same priority, which we see lots of security officers are doing today. So this is just to give a hint of this direction.
Thank you for that. And I love that you are talking about the intersection. It's a perfect transition to my next question. At Trope, we recognize the critical intersection between privacy and security. It's one of the themes that we explored in our foundational white paper. The two domains intersect, but they're also distinct, right? So I'm curious, I always like to ask people who are working in the middle of privacy and security, the domains, the practice, or the industries, the cybersecurity industry and the privacy tech industry. I'd love to hear your take on how, like, what's your take? How do you think about this intersection, and what are some of the things that are critical when you think about, you're certainly in this intersection, you're building in this space, you have a background in security coming into the privacy tech industry. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this intersection and what that looks like to you in terms of the opportunities, why decide to build in this space at all.
So let's start from the beginning. When we say GDPR, it talks about general data protection, and when we say DPO, it's a data protection officer. So the funny thing, we are used to think of, GDPR, CCPA, they're all like privacy regulations, but it is the way that they talk about data protection. And when we say data protection, obviously our minds jump to security. So already by the first definition of the regulation itself, they already embed privacy and security together at once. So this is also why we realize that in terms of security, you cannot do privacy without security, okay? You can do security with security, like I don't want anybody to hack into my box. They can sabotage my computer, right? It's not only about privacy. But the problem, or not the problem, the challenge with privacy is that it's not only about security controls, it's also about how you work with the data. So one day there is a new regulation like GDPR back in 2018, and now they've been telling everybody, guys, look, there is a lot of personal data that you collect from everybody, and now you need to protect it better. And now we're also going to tell you how to work with it. So for the first time, there is this integration, or this intersection of working with the data. And because it's all about the data first, so you still need security and privacy together. So this is how I see the integration, or coming together on both of them.
Thank you for that. And I couldn't agree more with some of the comments you made about, you can't really have privacy without security, but security is not enough either, right? Like, securing personal data is one aspect of privacy. It's an important aspect. That's why we have folks like you building in the intersection of it. But you're right, like, it's also about the entire processing of data, not just the security of personal data. So you're preaching to the choir here, and I'm sure that our audience, that resonates with our audience. You're currently building Piiano Vault, which is what I mentioned earlier. My mouth slipped. A product that Piiano is positioning as a privacy and security data vault. And you can correct me if that's inaccurate. At TROPT, one of the things that we do, because our mission is to fuel privacy tech and innovation, we want to improve this industry, and we want to help kind of define terms and be on the same field when it comes to what we're talking about. So, there's a lot of buzzwords out there. So one of the things that we want to do is really educate and spread awareness. And we do that in the white paper with terms like privacy and security, privacy engineering, and the different categories of privacy tech. So my question is, how do you think about privacy data vaults? I mean, data vaults in general prior to this weren't necessarily product categories, but were data modeling methodology. So I'm curious, like, when you talk to an 8-year-old, like a little kid, like, what is when they ask you what you're building, how do you describe what this category is?
So first, before we jump in, what's this product or category, or why this product? We need to understand that privacy is mostly ruled by legal people, by lawyers. And we are at Piiano, we try, as I'm myself an engineer by heart, we try to take the legal stuff, the regulation, and convert it, translate it into practical infrastructure to do privacy. So I can say, okay, I'm a software engineer, I'm a security expert, but then I'm not a privacy lawyer. So we try to understand how to take these regulations and help with that, help companies with applying, like being complying with the regulation or doing better security. So when we talked earlier about you need to protect all the personal data that you collect of your customers, you have a problem there, because today you have so many different databases where, storage solutions where the information is is lying. And now and some companies don't even know where the data is. That's why there are so many companies doing what we call data visibility solutions. Okay, so we realize like, okay, there are lots of companies already helping you to find out what kind of information you have on your own customers. And obviously the audience here are people that understand privacy, so I don't need to explain how comes there is a situation you need visibility tools for the own data you collect, which sounds silly if it's out of context. But then we said, okay, so there's so many visibility products, and we want to help with remediation. We want to fixate, and focus on the data breaches. And when we talked with CISOs, we realized, yeah, they want to just protect everything. And we told them, guys, you cannot protect everything. You need to give priority. So when now you're asking me, how would I explain it to an 8-year-old kid? It's very simple. It's like saying it's where mommy puts all their jewelry, right? So unwanted people can't steal this jewelry. So when even behind locked doors in our own apartments, we still want to have a safe to put the very, very valuable jewelry inside the safe. Unlike the TV, that if it's stolen, yeah, it's not cool, but it's not something you would put in a safe. It doesn't even fit there, right? But the point is, already we see an example that you have a door, you have a lock, and yet you use a safe. So the same analogy can be, for like backend systems. You have lots of information, it's spread out in many different data stores, and then you want this one place where you can use a safe for the very sensitive information. So what we are advocating for is also the name of the company, Piiano, with double I, that's PII, for personally identifying information. We are saying, just reading and this is where the intersection comes, by the way, of privacy and security. We are saying, look, if you have lots of data, but out of it, you take only the PII, you decouple the PII, and you store only the strong PII, like the strong identifiers, like full name, like SSN, like phone numbers, zip code, address, this kind of strong PIIs or strong identifiers. You put only them in a vault. So now the rest of the information is what is called pseudonymized. That's a curse word by GDPR, but it only means decoupling the PII. So now, if we take a very classified document and we censor only some of these identifiers, now the rest of the information is not that important in terms of privacy. So in security, you will always try to protect everything, and that's what people are used to. But in privacy, now it gives us the meaning of choosing where to prioritize our efforts. So if we want to avoid data breaches, we can't, because it's a matter of time. It's inevitable with technology today, with the velocity of developers, with how the world is ticking. So what we chose is, let's put only the identifiers that the regulator says that if a customer records containing PII is leaked, we are going to give you a fine, unfortunately, and you are going to have brand damage, and you are going to damage your own customers because now their information is leaked. So we try to decouple, take only the PII, the sensitive information like KYC files, and put it in the vault. So I know it's a very long answer, but I was trying to go and be thorough about the reasoning and the logic behind it.
No, it's a really good one, and you actually not only answered my question, but you also anticipated my next one, which was I was going to ask you about the privacy problems that you were trying to solve for. And what I heard from you was that you're trying to secure some of the most sensitive personal information out there through this data vault, right? And securing the crown PII, the sensitive PII, is what I'm hearing, which answers my next question. So I'm going to ask a follow-up instead, which is, I'm curious, like there is this trend that we're seeing in the space about decentralizing personal information. We see that with some of the big tech companies doing, and even the Web3 space doing decentralized decentralization, but also instead of putting everything into one repository or in the cloud, doing processing at the edge. So how would you kind of think about the data vault, which is kind of like a centralized way of securing the crown jewels against this other trend of which is, let's decentralize information so that it's, I guess the argument is that it's more secure that way. I could be wrong. You're the security and the hacker and the expert here, so I'd love to hear your thoughts about this trend and how you would kind of align those two. Are they
Right.
are they mutually exclusive in your mind, or how would you think about that?
So it's a good question about Web3. Everybody is excited about it. It might be the future of fintech, of DeFi, and the world is going there, and it gets more traction. But the problem with Web3 is that if you don't design your platform exactly from the beginning with privacy and security baked in, it's busted, right? And unlike Web 2.0, where we are now, is that everybody, like big companies, mature companies, they have so much data already. And then in 2018, one day, GDPR is knocking on their doors and tells them, now PAI is associated with liability, do something about it, okay? So Web 3.0 is maybe about decentralization, but it's not about decentralization against privacy, like like, for example, security by obfuscation, right? Or security by obscurity. So it's not that. And I think some people confuse it. So I don't see Web 3.0 going to kill privacy or to make it decentralized. I think there are two parallel things. We will need both. Lots of companies are going to continue becoming centralized. They have, a very, very strong reason to be that if they are capitalist. So it's not going to be gone. And then the decentralized models, yes, sometimes they are good. Imagine our phones, okay? So if we all have iCloud, for example, talking about Apple, and only once the hackers manage to break into iCloud, they can see all our data in different configurations. But if all our phones are disconnected from each other, and that's the case, so they need again and again to attack each person to get their photos, for example. So decentralization is good in certain areas, but when we talk about backend systems that they need the information, then sometimes it's not viable, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's certainly the case that, Web3 is coming, but it's not quite here yet. We still have to deal with the data that's been collected under the current age, under Web2, and we can't just forget about them and move on. It's going to be a long transition to the future age of the internet. I want to pivot to, I want to talk more about the vault that you're building. As folks will know, you guys participated in the TROPT Privacy Tech Stack Review Program, where we have potential buyers, users as the reviewers. And we did that purposely because we wanted to make sure that the things that the reviewers knew what they were talking about, because they're ultimately going to end up being the buyers. So my question is, speaking of customer personas, who are you building Piiano Vault for? So I know it might be a little bit early in your market research and such, but I'm curious, like, who would be the end users of this product?
And that's a good. Yeah, that's a good point.
Let me just add, privacy is so cross-functional. That's why I ask. It's not just like you mentioned lawyers earlier and engineers, but privacy is so cross-functional. It's not just about the lawyers. It's not just about the engineers either. There are also GRC and business people in the space, right, that look at the value of data. So I'm curious, like, which ones of those personas would ultimately be the ones using your product?
So to answer elaborately, first, the reason I'm excited, as we started with saying it's boring, but the reason I think privacy is so exciting is because the world is run by the oil, which is called data, okay? And now there is like a few entities, institutions that come in and they tell everybody, guys, from now on, this is how you're going to work with your data or the customer's data, honestly. And for the first time now, there is a privacy debt, like a technology debt, right? You have information, it's all in plain text, for example, unlike credit card numbers that are stored in a vault normally today, or secrets like machine-to-machine API keys and passwords and certificates. They're all now being managed in secrets managers. So now we are saying, yeah, PAI is still neglected, is still behind, and we want to vault it because that's a very effective solution. Some people think, yeah, if you vault it, you cannot use it. No, you can still use it. It just means it's much more ardent, and it's going to make it harder to compromise this information. And I guess the point is that what we are seeing today in the market is that developers are building their own solutions. Okay, so there is a gap. So if we are a startup, what we want to see in the market, happily, is a gap, is a repetitive gap that everybody is doing the same thing. What we call DIY kind of solutions for Vault, like build your own Vault solution. And we have today, as a startup company, we have talked with almost 200 companies globally from all over the world, mostly American companies. And we see the pattern of developers building some features, and some of them might call it a vault, some of them might call it a hardened database. But the point is, some people are working on security and privacy features. So we want to come in and to empower the developers to build it the right way, to do the heavy lifting of all the infrastructure, the boring stuff that doesn't help you or your business as a company, and instead letting us building it for you. And then you can just come in quickly, start using it, and we're going to save you a lot of time and making everything simple. And for the first time, maybe people will be happy, safeguarding PAI and encrypting PAI or tokenizing PAI, because it's going to be so easy like never before. So again, a very long answer, but I think maybe something I didn't say before. We are this company that tells everybody, guys, you need the red pill. You need to wake up. You need to change how you are working, because your architecture is sometimes not that good in terms of privacy, in terms of definitely security, as we see the data breaches. And we are the guys coming in saying, okay, yeah, we are experts. Sometimes we think we are smart, sometimes we are not. But what we are seeing with our hacking experience is definitely that you need more privacy by design. And for that, the data vault is the beginning of the solution of holding the sensitive information of the customers. And then we can also help once it's there. It's like privatized data. So now we can help also doing privacy workflows on top of the data. So even when we talk about Web3, if they're not going to fulfill individual rights, like the right to be forgotten or right for erasure and data subject access request. So that's my point with Web 3.0. It's obvious they need privacy by design. If they don't do that now, it's too late. And in Web 2.0, we want to help the companies over time getting more privacy by design, because then they will not need to do some of this stuff like the fulfilling the individual right request manually like we see today. So that's why, again, Data Vault is the beginning of the journey, the way we see it.
Yeah, so I heard you say developers, and I couldn't agree more. We do, beyond beyond the compliance, the checkbox compliance work that needs to be done, we do need to address privacy very early on, and that's something that we highlight in the white paper. There is a slew of products on the developer lifecycle side that are being used by developers. So I couldn't agree more with you, and it sounds like that hints on where you're going in the future, which is my next question. Aside from the vault that you're building right now, if you feel like sharing, obviously this is something that you're free to skip. What does your 3 to 5 year vision look like for Piiano Vault? And that may be such a long timeline for a startup, but I'm curious what your long-term vision is, hinting on your focus on developers.
Right. So actually, it's funny that in my mind it's obvious, but we are going to go open source because we want to gain the trust from the developers community, and we want to really change the world, to give better infrastructure, even if it's for free for some of the features. And with that, we want to try to make a change, to make a dent in the world, and people start using it. Hopefully, that The problem is that they need to be problem aware. They need to know that,
Mhm.
like we did with credit card numbers, that we encrypted them, we put them in the vault. The same with secrets now. So they need to know it. So in our vision, it's not really only about the product, it's also about the awareness of the world toward PII, sensitive information. So today, if I, even in my own company, if I ask every engineer what's PII, I'm gonna get either a frown or I'm gonna get different answers, right? And that's why PII is such an elusive definition, because what's PII? Everybody can define it differently. So hopefully within a few years, and again, I'm answering maybe more about the market and not about the product, but I think that's the point. It's more important where the market is going to be, that in 5 to 10 years people will say, actually, how did we dare to store PII like in plain text? It doesn't make sense. We need to defend the information of the customers that entrusted us with it, you know. So that's that. And maybe to be more practical, um, you know, the world is going to go through a massive change, and I believe not many companies are still aware of the problem that privacy by design puts in front of them. Okay, so they are going to change their systems. All the databases are going to need metadata to say whether you can read. It's not only about security controls, it's now about privacy controls. Maybe you have the access to the data, but maybe if the user opted out from getting marketing emails, then now you need to respect that, and you need engineer to write this code to respect that. So lots of things are going to change, the pipelines with more data and the individual rights that are going to be baked into some of the solutions. And the biggest problem that we are already seeing today is that there are like over 3,000 web applications, like SaaS services. And imagine that now you're a company, an average startup company uses like tens of these services, and now they are getting right to be forgotten because they are a B2C company. So now good luck iterating over, all the information of that person and finding out to which SaaS companies you share that information with and asking them to remove it. So I hope the world is going to a place where there is kind of open GDPR API, open protocol that everybody follows, that is going to make it easy to do privacy by design in intra-company way.
That was such a great, I want to highlight a comment from one of the audience members, is also one of our advisors, Gilbert Hill. Just great call on the developer community when it comes to really designing Web3 with privacy in mind. There's been a lot of buzz about that, about how privacy is front and center when it comes to Web3. It's one of the problems that we've been trying to grapple with in Web2. And so, kudos to you for recognizing that, and kudos to you too for solving for privacy still today, right? Because there's still a ton of work to be done in Web 2.0 before we transition to the next stage of the internet. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, but before we start wrapping up, I like to ask this question, and I've had silly answers, so feel free to be imaginative or serious about it. Aside from your own products, I'm curious, like if you could wave a wand, what type of privacy tech tool do you wish exists? And I've heard all sorts of answers to this one, so I'm curious what you'd like to exist out there.
It's funny maybe to say a PII wallet. So we never need to share our wallets in the first place, and we have virtual identities when we work with some companies like Apple is doing with their logins. So actually, this is where we started brainstorming our idea for this company, and we ended up like it's not gonna work. So we need to do it the way we
I'd love
are
to.
today.
Do you mind if we unpack that a little bit? Because we are seeing a bunch of privacy data wallets, and there's a bunch of them in Web3 that are being built, dozens of them actually that we are seeing. When you say it's not going to work, are you saying it's not going to work in the Web2 space, or you're saying in general, even in the web, when we transition to Web3, you don't think it's going to work either?
So when I say it's not going to work is right now, right? Because even today, privacy is so behind, even security, right? Security is mature, and then privacy is very new. So when we say even today with our solution, most companies don't think they need a solution, right, for privacy. So that's the awareness gap that we have, that we need to bridge, and that's our marketing challenge as a company or as an industry, if you ask me. And the same problem with the PII wallets. Like, some people, they want the PII, right? Some companies, they want it because this is how they extract value, monetization value. So sometimes the architects are going to be against it. Sometimes in certain use cases, I'm a bank, I need your PII. I need to do KYC, like know your customer. I need to do anti-money laundering, so I need your PII anyway. So it's not going to work in all
Mm-hmm.
use cases. But in e-commerce, for example, you don't need to know who I am. Even if you want to send me Nike shoes from Amazon, you can send it only to an Israeli uh, like warehouse, and only these people will know my address, but not the global Amazon or whatever. So I'm saying, yeah, there are ways to defeat or making better privacy decisions, but it's still too early. We need more maturity time as the whole industry.
Thank you for that, Gil. I have so many takeaways, and I'd like to just mention a couple of them. I agree with you. We need to spread awareness, especially when it comes to the developer community. We need to, as we like to say, shift privacy left, right? Before products are even built, we need the developers to be more aware, as you were saying, when it comes to privacy and how to build products with privacy in mind. And as one of the commenters shared in the chat, we also need we particularly need developers who are building in Web3 to be mindful of privacy as we build the next stage
Right.
of the internet. I'd love to invite you to share any calls to action that you might have, about your company, about your product, any events that you might want to share with them, if where you want to be found, if you want to be found, assuming you want to be found as a hacker. I know that's a sensitive question. Feel free to feel free to share that with the TROPT community.
Yeah, so on our website, piano.com, piano with piano.com, there is an early access program. And next week, hopefully, we are going to release the alpha version privately, alpha version of our Vault. And we want people to start playing with it, giving us feedback. We are very minded toward developer experience. So, for example, they are going to easily, use a Docker container to start playing with it, and that's where we are now. So we are still very early stage of developing this. It takes more time than normal, I would say, security or privacy products, because we are mission critical infrastructure. We are a storage solution, so we are minding it, the standards, and being very strict about it, because we don't want to have fails in the field, so that's where we are, alpha version of the Vault. If you sign up for demo, for talking with us, we can walk you through and show you what we are so excited about. Um, yeah.
Thank you for that, Gil. This has been quite enlightening, so I appreciate you sharing your time and your insights with the community. Everyone, like we do, we actually have a monthly networking social. So after this at 11, whoever wants to join, we're opening it up to you. Usually it's for TROPT Innovators members, but if you want to continue the discussion and talk about privacy data vaults, you're free. We'll share the link in the chat. And thank you to everyone. Thank you, Gil. And I hope to see you, soon, hopefully in person.
Likewise, enjoyed talking to you. Thank you, Lourdes.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.